Faith and Honest Conversation, where James and I are here. Hi, James. James and I are here to really explore as honestly as we can our experiences of faith. And James, just then I was really thinking how precious this time is to really explore on, kind of go deep into this experience that I think for both of us is a really precious part of us. And I know for me it's been a hard part to really articulate at times.
I can relate to that. To articulate is exactly right, isn't it?
Just really thankful for this time, James, to start with, and I hope it's really meaningful for those that listen in as well. James, is there anything you want to head us off with?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking then about possibly exploring the word growth, but just when we stopped for a minute, I actually feel maybe a more appropriate word to start with is stillness, and I don't want to do both because I feel like we won't do either justice, or we'll sort of like go halfway into each. But I think, just sitting and thinking about it, stillness, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it, and it kind of connects back to a lot of the things that we've been talking about, like things like enough and acceptance and that sort of sense of peace, and there's like an otherness to it that I really love when I think about stillness, because it's sort of, it's not like it's not just silence, and it's not just peace, and it's not just not doing or not like non-activity. There is an active nature to stillness where you are taking a moment and you are going. It's like taking a deep breath in, and that breath can feel like an eternity. It can just feel like you're letting everything breathe for a minute. And I suppose there's like a meditative nature to it, but it also kind of gives me, like I always get this real image of this sort of grove, or this like glade. Glade's the right word for it, like in a forest, really peaceful, sun shining, and it's just streaming through the trees. It's very, very still and very like warm, and like just that, and there's just this quiet all around, and there's no sense of urgency or any need, any desire to be anywhere else or to do anything else. So I think stillness is a good place to start.
Yeah, and I love that image of the glade, of that kind of in the forest, but kind of this space in there that's where you don't need to do anything. There's none of that pressure to come in, and also how it can feel like it's almost like we enter through the forest to get there. Like it's, there's the brambles to get through, and there's the roots to navigate, and it's kind of a bit dark at times, but it's kind of like you got to get through. You got to sink through the forest almost. Into that stillness.
Getting past all of the noise, I suppose, all the even visual noise of the forest.
And almost the I guess I think of forest, I think of like kind of getting lost there. I think of kind of bears being there and animals, and it's almost like all this stuff that's kind of churning in us of things maybe we're fearing, and the things that where we get lost in, and it's just kind of not It's not that we clear the forest; it's that we
Mm.
find a stillness in the forest.
Yeah, almost a place of safety, a place of of security in amongst all of the potential hazards or dangers, or yeah,
Yeah,
places where we don't feel secure.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, I love that you're saying about not needing to do anything. I think that's
Yeah,
such a powerful place, and how much of my life is spent kind of like trying to do the next thing, needing like
yeah,
pulled
yeah.
into I need to do this, I need to do this, and um, this sense of stillness really counters that.
Yeah, it sort of like goes against what we're taught about, like thinking of the future and preparing and moving to the future and seeing what we, you know, how we can take action now to make future life easier. Um, but actually, sometimes not doing that is really good. Um, and it's funny because I know in myself I've got a real tendency not to step forwards, not to step outside of the here and now and think forwards and think ahead.
Mm.
Um, and it's really fascinating because I've had that pretty much all my life. And it was talking to my partner about it, and she came up with uh, like just the most profound revelation for me. She said, "Well, James, you've said to me that you when you were young, when you were very small, that you didn't understand why you were alive. You didn't understand why you're here, what your purpose was. You hadn't chosen to be here, and so there was this sense of like, why am I here? What am I doing here?" And from that, like, it's easy to see why would you then think of a future where you're engaged and you're involved, because you're not feeling like you're supposed to be here now. Does that sort of make sense?
Mm.
Um, and she said it's really really sad that's the case, and I could sort of comprehend it, but I think certainly through my faith I can see how God has sort of turned that around for me. So he hasn't um, given me a sense of the future, but he's just given me a sense of the now, like given me a sense of like the now is okay, that it is all right for me to be here, that there is a purpose for me to be here, there is a reason, there is I don't have to keep questioning why I'm here, and that I didn't choose to be here, but actually although I didn't choose, someone else has chosen, and that's a good thing. It's not a negative thing. Um, yeah, and I think that really struck me. I could see it upset her quite a bit, but for me, I was just like, wow, that's like amazing. I'd never those terms before,
Mm.
and certainly like when I was younger, I think that's where I was at, and a sense of not wanting to be here and not yeah and not choosing to be here were quite interlinked. Um, yeah.
Not wanting and not choosing to be here.
Yeah, we were born, and the sense of so my sense of self, I was very aware that, like, if it hadn't been me who'd been born, like the essential me, my soul, my spirit, whatever it was that had sort of inhabited this vessel, this being, this body, then who would it have been? Who would I have been if I hadn't been me? And would I have still been aware? Um, I guess there's always been a part of me that's been destined to think about stuff rather than do stuff.
Mm.
um, so yeah, so that sense of not really feeling like I had agency, if that makes sense, as a
Yeah.
result. And now that sense is, it's not so much that I have a sense of agency, but more that there's a stillness, there's a peace in the being, in just existing,
Mm.
which is enough, which is good.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels. Um, One thing it felt like is that to me that it felt like now you belong here.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
like there was all these. I don't know. Should it have been me, or like, what if it wasn't me? What if I was another time? And like, do I belong in this moment and in this place?
Yeah.
And in this, in my family maybe, and all that. And yeah, and I was struck by that idea of how for you that sense of being and sense of belonging really makes you grounded in this moment.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I am now, and how it's meant, maybe how it's meant that it's been underlying that sense of not being tuned into the future before that.
Yeah.
So the sense of not being, or the contingency, that kind of the sense that should I be here, or what, how that stopped you, or meant you didn't think about the future. And I'm just struck by the fact that I guess for me that sense of not being in some way, or that kind of looseness of being, can mean that I chase things in the future. Because if I do something, then I might be, or then I might, it's in the achievement or something, that, or the having, or whatever. It's like in the future, then I'll be. If I do this, then I'll be. I'll belong, and I'll be, and I'll everything. And it's interesting how, that sense of being then impacts both our relationship with now and with the future.
Yeah.
In various ways, I guess. And I guess with the future, we can plan, and we can have hopes, because we want to make an impact, we want to make a difference, we want to be in the world. But also we can hold that, we can be grounded in the now much more, maybe, because that's where we are now. That's where we belong at this point.
What we can sense, and what we can feel, and what is, I suppose, essentially real. Whereas like the future, it's still like a bit untethered or something, or like, because it's unwritten or unexperienced. It's like we just don't know. We just don't know what it might.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I feel like I'm moving into kind of more what being, almost.
Yeah.
But I'm interested, because that comes down to our philosophy of time, almost. That does the future exist now? And for some, they say yes, all of time must exist. But actually, if we have a philosophy of time where only the now exists, only the now is being, if you like, then that does ground us in the now.
Yeah.
Particularly if we also believe we belong now. Whereas if we have a view of time that the future isn't being in some way, it's kind of open, or it's not set, or it's not there, then that doesn't have so much power, I guess. I don't know if that made any sense, or if I'm
with you. Yeah. So it's sort of like if your concept of time is more that that the future is less vital, because it's not set, or it's not predestined, I suppose. I hesitate to use that word, because there are so many long-standing arguments about it. But there's this sense of like the future is there's possible, it's potential, but it's not as vital as now. It's not as vital as what we experience, and what we know, and what we can sense in the immediacy of the moment. Whereas like you do have, I suppose, a concept of the future being more oh, okay, it's definitely coming. We definitely know it's going to happen because there's a sense of it, or it feels more concrete or more certain. And I suppose, I I haven't got that to a lesser or greater extent. And it's interesting that you're saying about being, and that's like the word that's coming out a lot for us but it really connects for me. Being and stillness really go hand in hand, because there's like a sense of being and a sense of in the stillness you are being. In the stillness you're not doing, you're not like active. It's very much a not passive, because it is like you're you're aware, you're taking an interest, you're actively engaging, but you're not doing. You're not like, it's not like a striving to get there. You're settling into it. You're being in it. And there's the famous verse, which is "Be still and know that I am God." Wherever it's in the Bible, this book that some people have read. It's quite a famous one. But yeah, in there there's a verse, "Be still and know that I'm God," and it's that be and still side by side. They go hand in hand. They're right. The essence of that, and for me, like what really it's almost like a place of faith for me in my being, in myself, in my there's too many senses of the word being there, but yeah, you get what I mean.
Yeah, in your body, maybe.
In my body, that's the one.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's so almost like that place of stillness is that place of faith.
Yeah, and it's where I experience God. I can experience myself and know that there's that all is well, and all will be well, and all manner of things will be well, and that from that, then like all worry and fear for the future. And I guess I say this quite glibly because I don't really have it. I don't really have this sense of the future. So what am I worried about? There isn't ever that sense of worry. But then there are worries about the past and what I've done and the things that I've said or done, or that I'm concerned about, or all sorts. I can go on for hours about the things that I might regret or feel bad about or whatever. But again, with those, that there's a sense that those are okay as well. That they are, if not by me, but they are held. They are. They're not going to. That they're not like the most important thing. They're not the thing that defines me. They're not the essential. Yeah. More peripheries of the forest, maybe.
Yeah. I want to ask, what is essential?
Yeah. Well, I suppose what is essential for me would be, this sense that what is essential? I suppose for me, like the stillness is essential. The being is essential. Like whenever I'm in that state, in the place of like stillness, I know that that's the most important thing. That actually nothing else is as essential, is as important as that, and that all other things flow from that place, come out of that place. It's almost like that glade is the center of the forest. It is what the forest is around, what the forest is built about or is grown around. And so, anywhere I go from there is the right direction, because always outwards, it's always growth, it's always coming from that place of stillness, it's always coming out of that I suppose that wellspring that would be there, that is the center of life, and the center of, certainly for me, my life. And it's very, very abstract, and I'm really aware of that. But I guess it's the only way to describe these sorts of things, because they're so hard for us to put into words. Yeah, so that's essential. And beyond that, I'm not sure what else is. I suppose relationship is essential, because that's where, and especially deep, meaningful relationship is where, like, the stillness in one person meets the stillness in another. Yeah, where you can allow the barriers and the fears to drop away, and just to go, do you know what? It's all right. It's all right for you to be you, and for me to be me, and for us to acknowledge one another and see one another, and not expect from one another. Just recognize that we're both beings, and both being in our own place. Yeah.
Resonate with that, James. And really, as you were speaking, I was really feeling that all that glade, that stillness is the thing that you would not do without, and the thing also that I would not do without. And we've already said that for us is that place of faith. It's kind of, that's how we experience our faith at our, for me, I want to say my deepest level. Kind of, and that, you know, you said about anything that comes out from that is good. I was also thinking, you know, when I stray out of that, then it's a loss. And I think for me, and maybe this case for you, I don't know, but for me, like, I know a lot of my living where I've lived not from that glade, or kind of not in touch with that glade, and how that's led to real emptiness, and real loss. Like that's when life feels meaningless. And that's when I feel most lonely and most isolated, because in that glade is when I connect to others at that real level.
I suppose it's sort of like when you don't feel like you're in that place, that sense of loss, and the sense of almost being lost, because you're in the dark, in the woods, and you don't know where to go, and you're not sure how to get back there. And I sort of think, from my own perspective, before I knew the glade existed, it was, I suppose that's what I was looking for all the time, was this place of peace, this place of stillness, and so I was constantly searching without even realizing, and so that's why I felt lost. And I suppose it's funny. I was speaking to a friend of mine just yesterday about evangelism, and how neither of us really can relate to it, for various different reasons. But it's essentially, it's sort of saying, like, I can't relate to the sense of saying to somebody, you've got to believe what I believe in order to be okay. So it's more, for me, is that if there's a sense that somebody's wanting to evangelize, it's because they're not quite reached their own glade. They haven't reached that place of peace and stillness in themselves, and I hope that they get there. But there's nothing that I can do or say that will make somebody find that, and there's nothing that I can do or say that will, I hope, prevent somebody finding that. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. And I think that this is like kind of, again, the essence, or something that I feel is essential to my faith, and where I could easily be branded heretic and be happy about it, is that I believe that every person has that glade in them, and that it is an essential part of who we are as humans. And so I don't need to worry. I don't need to worry if people haven't found it yet. Just hope that they do, and yeah, talk about it if they ask me. But that's not going to necessarily lead them to their glade, because it's about my glade. I can't talk to them about it.
And actually, there's something about it, the characteristic evangelism or the stereotype of evangelism, there we can't accept the other. We can't accept the other where they are. And I think what you're talking about is kind of in that stillness, we can it's okay when I'm not in that glade, and it's okay when the other is evangelizing others because they're not in their glade. That's how it happens, and that's how we find our way. And we all have our path, and we all have our lives. And when I really touch that glade, which is rare, when I really get in its real stillness, but even it's even all these things are okay.
Yes, yeah.
In them, because
when you're there, everything's okay.
Yeah,
really
yeah.
Yeah.
And then usually I kind of pretend that I'm there and get all fired up about all these things that are happening, and obviously I'm not there, but it's kind of like that. It's a real radical stillness that blesses everything, I think. And I'm really aware also where you're saying, and this is my own philosophy, but where it reminds me of I've been looking into Teresa of Avila. I think I quoted her another one, but yeah. So and she's saying she talks about the mansion of the soul, and in the innermost mansion is where God dwells. And you said something about this is what I was looking for before, and it's and it's that quite radical notion, perhaps for some more than others, but that maybe in each of us there's a place where God dwells, or at least a place where God is intimate with us. And I think for me that's the still place. It's where everything is okay because I'm in the presence of God. And I say that in a way that that may not be the content of other people's faith, or the understanding, but for me that's the magnitude of it, and that's the the real crux of it, and why it's so precious.
And certainly from a Christian perspective, that is exactly what you're saying. That's why it's so precious, that's why it's so sacred, that's why it's the centerpiece of our faith, because it is where we would say God dwells, where we would say God meets us and is intimate with us. But yeah, I love what you said there, Tom. That it's not necessarily how other people will perceive it, but it's the words that we use, and it's the framework that we've got. And yeah, I love your honesty about saying it's a place that you wish you were there more often, and it's easy to pretend we're there.
I love talking about it, James.
yeah, don't we all? And I have to admit that doing this series of talks has really brought me closer, has really reminded me, and I hadn't realised actually talking about it can be so powerful and remind me and be such a touchstone to bring me back and to help me just to be still. I really love it.
I think I think you pick up on something that's, we've developed through whatever, that this idea of faith should be a personal thing. But actually, faith needs other people. Like
Yeah.
the power of community and faith, and it can be a hindrance, I think, to this getting in touch with the stillness and to the really being there. But also, it is so important,
Yeah.
that that sense of relationship and faith communities, maybe, however we define that, may be such a vital part of our path of faith, or of our experience of faith.
Yeah. And it's the danger arises when we start to, I guess, set boundaries that are unhelpful, or say you're in, you're out, this sort of sense of like otherness and setting apart, or whatever. And that's the real challenge. And I don't know how we get around that. I think that again, at our heart, we are, as humans, quite tribalistic, and quite sort of good at going, this person's okay, this person's not, and categorizing and and trying to create order out of the chaos we see around us. And I don't know. I haven't worked that all out yet. Surprise, surprise.
But that's okay, James.
I'll look for another day.
Yeah. No, and it is something that I'd love more of, this kind of talking across the faith boundaries, the traditional faith boundaries. I would love to be part of, because I hope those are the conversations that will then deepen my own faith.
Yeah. There's something really exciting about it, isn't it? Exciting to go, hang on, somebody else is encountering something bigger, but through a completely different means, through a completely different language and order of thought, and I suppose like history of philosophy and that sort of thing, like philosophical background and that sort of thing. My words completely failed me then, but
no, and it's the kind of, it's almost like a lineage that they're part of, isn't it?
That's the word.
And it is exciting, and I guess it comes down, it kind of goes back to that stillness. When we have those conversations out of the stillness, then it's okay that they are different. And it's okay that they challenge and everything, because everything's okay. And,
it really does make it that way, doesn't it? It really does.
Great. I think we're going to leave it there, James, for tonight, unless you've got something you want to finish with that's really pressing.
No, just gonna add that it's almost like it gives everything a different light, that's favourable, like a favourable light on everything, which is effectively what you said earlier. So I'm just paraphrasing you. So well said.
Do you want to say any more with that?
No, I think we've covered it.
Okay.
I think that's great delve into stillness. I like that.
No, thank you. I love that you brought the word, James. And thank you again for your honesty in all of this. It really touches me. Okay, so we will be back next Tuesday at 7:30 for another roughly half-hour conversation into something, and we'll find out what that something is in a week's time. Okay, take care, everyone. Have a good week.